Thousands of Americans have rallied in Washington, D.C. to demand suspension of military aid to Ukraine. Protesters also called on the government to disband NATO, slash the Pentagon budget, and negotiate peace. Some argue that the Russia-Ukraine conflict amounts to the Third World War and could spark a nuclear confrontation. Others accuse their government of undermining world peace and fighting a proxy war for its own interests. Demonstrators later marched on the White House. Well, the rally comes as a recent poll showed dwindling public support for the delivery of military and economic assistance to Ukraine. Crossing over to the U.S., joined by editor of Veterans Today, Mike Harris. Mike, thanks so much for being with us. Your take on this? I mean, are there growing numbers of Americans who are against this continual support of Ukraine, or your assessment of it?
Well, thank you for having me on. First of all, the support for the war in Ukraine has never gained traction with the U.S. population. The Americans really don't have a dog in this fight. You have to remember that this whole situation was started in 2014 when the U.S. government under Victoria Nuland toppled the duly elected democratic government of Ukraine and deposed Viktor Yanukovych, deposed him and put him out of office, drove him out of the country into Russia. So the U.S. started this problem here within Ukraine, and it's gotten worse ever since. We're being led by the nose by a bunch of Jewish neocons who don't have the interest of the American people in mind. And like Ukraine, one of the biggest problems that we have in the U.S., so Ukraine has a Jewish government and a Christian army, so they don't care about how many of their soldiers die. We in the U.S. have the same problem, where we are being led by the nose by our Jewish oligarch gangster government that is dragging us into a war that the American people don't need and don't want. We just finished a 20-year engagement in Afghanistan. Before that, we had a two-front war in Afghanistan and Iraq. The American people are exhausted. We do not have any stomach for this war, and we do not support it. We never have. We do not want to be involved.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because as I've been talking to people in the States, they're talking about the deteriorating infrastructure inside of the country, that they want money to be spent at home. How likely is that to happen, though, Mike?
Slim to none. It should be pretty obvious to any awake Americans, not woke, but awake Americans, that our government has stopped some time ago responding to the needs of the American people. It has just stopped. We're being led by a globalist agenda here to integrate the U.S. into a greater global one world government, and we want no part of it. We have to borrow the money that goes to Ukraine, and nobody wants to lend it to us anymore. The Chinese don't want to lend it to us. The Japanese don't want to lend to us because we're a bad credit risk, because we have a $31 trillion outstanding debt. So when you're trying to borrow money to fund a foreign war that's a proxy war for the U.S., Americans don't have a stomach for it. We want nothing to do with this war. And when you look at the cause of this war, as I stated, this was caused by Victoria Nuland to topple the government of Viktor Yanukovych, to impose a Jewish Khazarian puppet in there, Poroshenko. And now they have the other puppet in there, Zelensky. And we have no taste for this war. We want nothing to do with this. You have to understand that Kiev was the capital of the Russian Empire at one time. So we're talking what has historically been Russian territory for the past 2,000 years. And for Russia to wish to reclaim that is not surprising, particularly when you have the Jewish oligarchs who were shelling the Donbass and killed 16,000 Russian-speaking civilians. Ukrainian citizen civilians are killing their own people. They're genociding a portion of their population. And again, this is their Jewish government killing their Christian population. This is an outrage, and it needs to be stopped right now. And Putin is doing the right thing. He is one of the best and bravest leaders of my generation, of my lifetime. And I admire the man. I admire what he's doing. Ukraine was a hotbed for money laundering, drug trafficking, human sex trafficking, organ trafficking, drug trafficking, all of these criminal enterprises that were in Ukraine. And our puppet Biden goes over there and he threatens the justice minister that they're going to withhold $1 billion in aid if they don't fire the guy investigating his son. If you don't see the causality and the linkage here between the corruption of the Biden crime family and the corruption in Ukraine, then you're blind.
Okay.
And like I said, the American people, we have no taste for corruption. We have no taste for this war. Abandon Ukraine because they're a corrupt government. Let them fall. Let Russia bring order to them. They're prepared to do it.
And on that note, appreciate you being with us. Mike Harris, Senator Veterans Today.